إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهدي الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله حق تقاته ولا تموتن إلا وأنتم مسلمون يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله وقولوا قولا سديدا يصلح لكم أعمالكم ويغفر لكم ذنوبكم ومن يطع الله ورسوله فقد فاز فوزا عظيما. All praise is due to Allah. We praise Him, we seek His help, and we ask for His protection. We confide in Him, we trust in Him alone, and we seek protection against the evil and the mischief of our own souls and from the evil results of our deeds. Whoever He guides on the right path, none can misguide. And whoever He declares misled, none can guide him back. And we bear witness that none deserves to be worshipped except Allah. He is alone and He has no partner. And we bear witness that Sayyidina Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam is His servant and His messenger. O you who have believed, fear Allah as He deserves to be feared, or have taqwa of Allah, have God consciousness of Him as He deserves to have, and die not except as Muslims. O you who have believed, have taqwa of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and always say a word directed to truth. Usikum wa nafsi bi taqwallah. I counsel you and myself to be mindful of God. Amma ba'd. قال الله في القرآن العظيم بعد أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم فلما فصل طالوت بالجنود قال إن الله مبتليكم بنهر فمن شرب منه فليس مني ومن لم يطعمه فإنه مني إلا من اغترف غرفة بيدي فشربوا منه إلا قليلا منهم فلما جاوزه والذين آمنوا قالوا لا طاقة اليوم بجالوت وجنوده قال الذين يظنون أنهم ملاقو الله كم من فئة قليلة غلبت فئة كثيرة بإذن الله والله مع الصابرين ولما برزوا لجالوت وجنوده قالوا ربنا أفرغ علينا صبرا وثبت أقدامنا وانصرنا على القوم الكافرين فهزموهم بإذن الله وقتل داود جالوت وآتاه الله الملك وعلمه مما يشاء ولولا دفع الله الناس بعضهم ببعض لفسدت الأرض ولكن الله ذو فضل على العالمين. صدق الله العظيم. My name is Mustafa Farooq, and I am the Executive Director of the National Council of Canadian Muslims. I want to begin this khutbah by first thanking all of you and the Kanata Muslim Association for having me here as your guest today. My khutbah today is on fighting giants, the internal and the external battle. When I was thinking about this khutbah, I was thinking about a number of things. I was thinking about how to talk to you about the commandment to stand up for justice. Inna Allah ya'muru bil adli wal ihsan. We are commanded to enjoin the good and to forbid the evil. وَالنَّحْيَ عَنِ الْمُنْكَرِ. We are commanded, as I said at the beginning of this khutbah, to speak a good word. قَوْلًا سَدِيدًا. But in the time that we live in, when the stakes are so high, when our brothers and sisters in Quebec, for example, are held back by oppressive legislation that denies them the ability to wear hijab and to become a teacher, it seems overwhelming. And it's not just the situation in Quebec. It's the situation if all you have to do is turn on the news, turn on BBC, turn on CBC, and look at the headlines, and see the situation of the plight of our brothers and sisters across the world. And that just seems so overwhelming in terms of looking at the injustice that's before us. So my question today is, how do we stand up for justice against what seem like overwhelming odds? And as I thought about this, I thought about the story of Hazrat Dawood alayhi salam in the Quran. Now, we all know the story of Hazrat Dawood alayhi salam, how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala picked a brave young man full of faith to face Jalut. In his tafsir, Imam Qushayri writes, and I'm going to roughly translate, that at the time of the fighting, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala brought the victory about through the hands of Hazrat Dawood alayhi salam. He was a middling stature. He was not a large person. And he had no weapon with him but a slingshot. And the victory was his because the help of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala was with him. And before Dawood alayhi salam, before he fought Jalut, we have the story in the Quran when the believing army, when they saw Jalut, and the hearts of some of the believers, they were shaken. And some of the believers, they quailed in fear. And others said, كم من فئة قليلة غلبت فئة كثيرة بإذن الله. How many times has a smaller group vanquished a larger group with the permission of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? And as it was when Hazrat Dawood alayhi salam rode against Jalut on that day, as it was with Sayyidina Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam, when they rode out to face the Quraysh who had come to exterminate them on Badr. And there are so many parallels like that throughout our history. Now, imagine that. Of course, after this, most of us are going to go back to work. Imagine, however, if I told you that you were going to ride off, leaving here, going to the snow, to face off against what seems to be certain death, in the face against armored giants. Now, the reality is that when we go back to work, most of us are not likely to run into any physical giants. But every last one of us faces a giant of a different sort. That is, we all face obstacles, quandaries, challenges in life that are every bit as threatening and dangerous, as fearful and as intimidating as any physical giant could be to us. Because the reality is that the Quran is here for us in all times. And Hazrat Dawood alayhi salam's story is not just like just a random story. It's an example for each and every one of us. Because he's not the only person to come up against the giant. All believers will find themselves up against a challenge, and quite often. If not now, if you're not facing a challenge today, there will be a point at life in which you will face something. And because this is not just my word, this is the promise from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. وَلَنَبْلُوَنَّكُمْ بِشَيْءٍ مِّنَ الْخَوْفِ وَالْجُوعِ وَنَقْصٍ مِّنَ الْأَمْوَالِ وَالْأَنفُسِ وَالثَّمَرَاتِ وَبَشِّرِ الصَّابِرِينَ. Now, you might right now, and you might face in the future, the Jalut of some great sorrow, which threatens to embitter you and keep you from going forward and making the best of life's opportunities. Perhaps someone else is facing the suffering, the Jalut, that giant of suffering, that threatens to make you wallow in self-pity and miss the blessings that are yours. You know, I remember when my child was sick in the hospital and eventually passed away back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And you could feel in the aftermath of that, and I'm sure every one of us who has lost a loved one feels like that. That feeling of this giant that's in front of you, that makes you question yourself, that makes you question your faith, and that most importantly, makes you want to forget about the incredible mercies that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has bestowed upon us in each and every moment. Now, some folks, they'll face the Jalut of jealousy, hasad, envying someone who appears to have the edge over you, and it frustrates you, and it disheartens you. Maybe somebody's lied about you, and that exasperates you and infuriates you. And you face the gigantic challenge of trying to figure out what to do about it. Your giant may be some great disappointment. If you're a young person, your giant may have some disheartening challenge that you face at school. It may have to do with acceptance by your peers, or your athletics, or your grades. Or your giant might be a home situation, or your relations with a loved one. or some extremely discouraging personal problem. The Jalut facing you might be a terrible moral temptation that threatens to crush you and ruin you. But whatever the form it comes in, you can count on it. If not now, at least somewhere along the line, you will find yourself facing Jalut. He's going to hurl his defiant threats, and it will seem that there's no way that you can overcome him. Your problem may be so big that there's no way through it, over it, around it, or under it. But don't throw in the towel. Don't give up the ship. Don't cast away your staff. Because at the end of the day, our tradition teaches us that it is not the victory that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala looks for, although He promises us that victory is near. It is the striving to do what is right. It is speaking a word of truth to a tyrant. Kalimatu haqq in the sultan ja'ir. It is the word of speech that Sayyidina Musa alayhi salam gave to Fir'aun. A gentle word, qawlan layyinan. It is the word of the magicians who gave up their lives and never saw a victory in the physical plane in standing up against the Fir'aun. It is the victory, and just imagine that for a second. You know, the magicians, we don't know their names in the Quran, but every one of us, when we come to Ramadan, when we hear about them, we hear about the struggle of these magicians who, when they recognized the truth, they stood up for it, and they were, murdered by Fir'aun in the most aggressive and horrifying way. لَأُقَطِّعَنَّ أَيْدِيَكُمْ وَأَرْجُلَكُمْ مِنْ خِلَافٍ ثُمَّ لَأُصَلِّبَنَّكُمْ أَجْمَعِينَ. And they said, قَالُوا إِنَّا إِلَىٰ رَبِّنَا مُنْقَلِبُونَ. That right from that moment when they saw the truth, they stood up for it, and even though we don't know their names, we read about their sacrifice every single time we read the Quran. And just like that, it's the victory of Imam Hussein radiallahu anhu, whose martyrdom was still martyrdom even though he did not see victory in this physical plane. Just like the martyrdom of Hazrat Sumayyah, when she was made a martyr and never saw the victory. She never saw Fateh Makkah. Because the victory is not how we measure success. We measure success based on whether we, like Hazrat Dawood alayhi salam, pick up the stone and go forth to cast out, to stand up against injustice with our hands, with our speech, and at the very least, as per the hadith, as per our hearts. أقول قولي هذا واستغفر الله لي ولكم ولسائر المسلمين فاستغفروه إنه هو الغفور الرحيم. Alhamdulillah, salatu wassalamu ala rasulillah wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa wala. When we look out today, we see that injustice is all around us. And the people, and I'm just maybe speaking about myself more than anybody else, you can sometimes find yourself huddled, overwhelmed, and too frightened to do anything about it. So how do we stand up against these giants of injustice? How do we stand up against the jaluts in our lives? Because the reality is that in each and every time there is evil, and then there are those who must stand up against evil. In every time there is a Fir'aun, in every time there is a Jalut, and in every time there is an Abu Jahl. And therefore, we must learn from the examples of those who stood up against them, that archetype, and those actual people, for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala only, and to learn. Now, the first thing I want you to take away is that sometimes our standing isn't incredibly romantic. Sometimes it means what seems like mundane things. So when Talut, when he commanded his army not to drink the water before they fought the army of Jalut, that seemed like a mundane thing, just don't drink the water. But it had a profound spiritual and moral effect. Sometimes our standing against injustice can mean fasting more or praying more. Indeed, the fasting of Hazrat Dawood alayhi salam is a well-narrated hadith. It means sometimes in those darkest moments of the night, when you feel alone and you're facing giants, it means opening your hands and praying to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for guidance. Because we know from our history that when our Sahabiya and when the Anbiya were facing off against overwhelming obstacles, the first thing that they did was not necessarily to, do a math calculation of all of the strength that they had, but was to stand up. We know that the Prophet ﷺ, before they fought Badr, stood for hours in prayer before they fought against this overwhelming odd. And I promise you, the next time that you're facing off against an obstacle, whether it's at work, whether it's at school, if you stand first and you turn to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and say, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, I have nothing, I have no one. I can't take this challenge without your nasr, without your assistance. Help me. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will always answer, because وَإِذَا سَأَلَكَ عِبَادِي أَنِّي فَإِنِّي قَرِيبٌ أُجِيبُ دَعْوَةَ الدَّاعِ إِذَا دَعَانِ. If you stand before Him, if you supplicate before Him, His answer is coming. And this internal part of standing up against the giants, that's really important to understand. Because let me tell you, the nature of my job at the National Council of Canadian Muslims, NCCM, is to go out there and stand up for all of your rights, whether in fighting against the Quebec government or standing against Islamophobia. But let me tell you, that literally means nothing in terms of combating my own desires. It does nothing in terms of my, necessarily my khushu' in prayer, or my, ensuring that I'm regularly reading Quran or fasting. One struggle does not erase the other one. The internal must always accompany the external. Now, am I standing up against the jalut in my heart? Am I standing up against hasad and ghadab and riya? Am I standing up against nifaq? Those are the questions I want you to think about. Are you standing up? Now, the internal can also not be completely divorced from the external. And that means standing up for justice outside of ourselves each and every day. Now, let's take an obvious one that you should all be thinking about. Let's talk about Bill 21. Now, it is important for each and every one of us to support our brothers and sisters in Quebec. Just across the river, as many of you know, and I'm sure all of you know, the Quebec government has restricted the wearing of religious symbols in several public sector jobs through a piece of legislation called Bill 21. Now, I want you to let that sink in for a moment. That means that for Muslims, Jews, and Sikhs, they wake up every single day to a different set of opportunities than everyone else in Quebec. It means that if you wear a hijab across the river, you can't become a teacher. You can't become a prosecutor. You can't become a judge. The Quebec government has legalized the very thing that we fought and that your parents fought for generations to overcome: discrimination and second-class citizenship. And we all, each and every one of us in this room, we bear a collective responsibility for that. And it's not just the Bill 21s of this world. Across the country, khateebs this week are telling their congregations about the need to stand up for disability rights within our own communities. We know that there are many Muslims who face disabilities, whether mental or physical, and it's incumbent upon each and every one of us to stand up for justice, to make their lives easier, because every one of us could have been born with an infirmity that we would hope that our brother and sister would take care of us for. So I encourage you to learn more and to get more resources so that you can learn how to stand up for justice in every external part of your life. Now, why is this the case? Why must we stand up for somebody who's not us, who doesn't live right beside me? I know the people in Quebec are right across the river, and some of you, in fact, may live in Gatineau. But why must we stand up for somebody across the street? And it's because the Prophet ﷺ told us, كُلُّكُمْ رَاعٍ وَكُلُّكُمْ مَسْئُولَةٌ عَنْ رَعِيَّتِهِ. All of you are shepherds, and all of you are accountable for your flocks. In other words, we are responsible for what is in our circle of control. And right now, assisting to make sure that your daughters and sisters can wear the hijab and become teachers and access public services, because Bill 21 also says that if you wear the niqab, you can't access public services, perhaps even riding a bus. Now, my brothers and sisters, it is time to make sure that this flock, all of us here in this room and all of us outside of this room, are taken care of. Now, right now, we at NCCM, the National Council of Canadian Muslims, we are in the process of litigating Bill 21. And we are currently awaiting the decision of the Quebec Court of Appeal. And after this khutbah, if you look up more information about our battle against Bill 21, you can get the full details about what we're doing to stand up for your rights. But we need your help to continue this forward. This isn't going to happen with a bunch of people sitting in an office, a bunch of lawyers like myself, doing this kind of work. This is something that each and every single one of us requires to do, to stand up for justice in their lives. It means when you go back and you're with your coworkers, smile. We sometimes underestimate the power of a smile and what that does. Take a piece of trash off the side of the road. Clean the sidewalks now that the snow has fallen. The Prophet ﷺ told us, I was only sent to teach you good character. Show that good character, because that good character is integrally tied to standing up against injustice. And at the end of the day, we are each accountable to making sure that we are protecting our brothers and our sisters. The Prophet ﷺ said, مثل المؤمنين في تواضعهم وتراحمهم وتعاطفهم كمثل الجسد. That the parable of the believers in their affection, mercy, and compassion for each other is that of a body. When any limb aches, the whole body reacts with sleeplessness and fever. So if you've ever had a toothache, you understand this hadith. It's a small part of your body, but if that's in pain, you can't do anything. And the reality is that right across the river in Quebec, our brothers and sisters are in serious need of your assistance. They're in serious need of you standing up for them. This path of Islam, this path of Tasneem, is about standing up for peace and justice every day. It's about standing up to the Jaluts internally. It's about standing up to our appetitive selves, the kasra of the shahwa, against our own inadequacies and fears, our own deviations. It's about standing up to the Jaluts externally. It's about standing up to oppressive governments like the Quebec government, about speaking a word of truth, about praying and donating and working to ensure that challenges like NCCM's to the Quebec government in court succeed. And after this khutbah, I'll be standing outside asking for you all to sign on to find out more information about this battle. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala guide each and every one of us to his path and to the path of truth. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wassalatu wassalamu ala ashraf al-anbiya'i wal mursaleen. Sayyidina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa ashabihi ajma'in. Qala Allah ta'ala, Inna Allah wa malaikatahu yusalluna ala al-nabi. Ya ayyuha alladhina amanu صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما. اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه إلى يوم الدين. ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار. ربنا ظلمنا أنفسنا وإن لم تغفر لنا وترحمنا لنكونن من الخاسرين. ربنا ظلمنا أنفسنا وإن لم تغفر لنا وترحمنا لنكونن من الخاسرين. ربنا ظلمنا أنفسنا وإن لم تغفر لنا وترحمنا لنكونن من الخاسرين. ولذكر الله أكبر والله يعلم ما تصنعون.